I paid for my sister's wedding venue thinking I'd be maid of honor. Then I got uninvited. You're not a bridesmaid, you're like a sponsor, she laughed. She didn't uninvite you. She reframed your role, my mom added. I didn't argue. Just made a little change to the wedding slideshow. My sister was screaming as soon as, let's rewind. Because when someone tells you you've been reframed, and not in the fun Instagram filter kind of way, your brain needs a moment. Or several. It started the way all emotional car crashes do, with good intentions and a deeply regrettable group chat. The wedding planning had been in full chaos mode for about 6 months and I, idiot that I am, had offered to help. I love my sister, I told myself. Family sticks together, I told myself. Plus, I have event planning experience and a mild addiction to spreadsheets. What could possibly go wrong? A lot, apparently. My sister, Brielle, is 3 years younger than me and somehow believes this gives her seniority. I'm 31. She's 28. And she has the ego of a Roman emperor and the conflict resolution skills of a seagull fighting over a French fry. But still, I thought this wedding might bring us closer. Or at the very least, prove once and for all that I was the reliable one. The one who could show up, keep the budget intact, and not scream at a caterer over the spiritual significance of salmon versus duck. I paid the deposit on the venue because she forgot her wallet at the viewing, and then somehow forgot it for 3 weeks straight. I handled the contracts, the vendor emails, the slideshow, the digital invites, and the playlist. I even lent her my own wedding planner template, color-coded tabs and everything, which she promptly renamed Chaos Spreadsheet Master Final. Use this one. It was exhausting but sort of gratifying, until one Tuesday morning I got a text that said, "Hey, quick update. We've made a few changes to the wedding party, simplifying a bit. Hope that's cool." Naturally, I assumed this meant someone had dropped out or gotten food poisoning. Maybe her friend Juliet, the one who called monogamy a colonial construct, had bailed again. But no. An hour later, I got a call from Brielle herself. She was chipper in that way that immediately makes you suspicious. "So don't freak out," she said. Which, of course, is code for, "I've already done something terrible and need you to emotionally parent me through the consequences." I braced myself. Okay. We've decided to, streamline the bridal party a bit. Make it more intimate. Less corporate. I read this article about emotional minimalism. Emotional minimalism. Right. And by streamline, I asked, you mean? We're keeping it just close friends. People who vibe, you know? It's not personal. She said, not personal, like someone explaining a layoff at a cookie factory. I was a redundancy. An emotional spreadsheet cell she merged with a shrug. I paused. So I'm not your maid of honor anymore. Well, you're not important, she chirped. You're just not in the lineup. But don't worry, you're still our biggest supporter. Like a sponsor. A sponsor. Like this was a PBS telethon and I'd agreed to fund it in exchange for a tote bag. Before I could respond, our mom Karen, yes, her real name, piped up in the background. I could hear the clink of a spoon stirring tea and the hum of her default denial setting kicking in. Sweetheart, she didn't uninvite you, Mom said. She reframed your role. That's when something in me went very, very still. Not angry. Not tearful. Just still. Like the moment before an earthquake when everything holds its breath. I didn't argue. I didn't even sigh. I just said, okay, and hung up. Then I turned to my laptop, opened the wedding folder and stared at the shared drive. My access hadn't been revoked. Classic Brielle. Always forgetting the boring functional parts. The slideshow file was still there. The one I'd been building for weeks, with music cues and transitions timed down to the second. It was supposed to be a surprise. Something she'd asked me to handle with creative vision. Which, translated from Brielle speak, meant, do everything and let me take the credit. The ceremony and reception were scheduled for Saturday. I wouldn't be attending. That had been made abundantly clear. But the whole thing was being streamed, for Grandma Ellie who couldn't travel. My mom had said, you can watch from home if you want. We'll wave to you. Generous. So I watched. From the couch. In sweatpants. Hair in a bun. Popcorn in one hand, laptop in the other, like a very petty, very emotionally wounded version of a sports commentator. I logged into the stream about 5 minutes before the ceremony started. The venue looked beautiful. My venue, technically. The one I'd paid for. Flowers everywhere, string quartet, gold-framed signs that said things like, 2 souls, 1 story. Cute. If you hadn't seen the group chat where Brielle referred to her fiancé, Miles, as a golden retriever in human form, loyal but not exactly intellectually gifted. I sipped my drink and waited. The ceremony went smoothly. Vows were exchanged. People cried. My dad even quoted The Notebook, which felt like a violation of basic human dignity, but whatever. They kissed. Cameras clicked. Everyone applauded. Then the reception started. There was a brief hiccup with the mic. Brielle barked at a staff member off camera. But then the lights dimmed and the projector came on. Time for the slideshow. Cue the first few photos. Baby Brielle in a tutu. Brielle and Miles on their first date. Brielle fake laughing at brunch. The guests cooed. My mom wiped a tear. Then it changed. I'd left the music. Kept the timing. But the next photo wasn't baby Brielle. It was a screenshot. And not just any screenshot. Her words. In her font. From her phone. Saying things she thought no one would ever see. I leaned forward. On screen her face lit up like a supernova. Not from joy. From horror. Brielle was screaming before the second photo finished fading. And I just sat there watching from home. With popcorn. Because really, what else was I supposed to do? I used to think being the older sibling came with some kind of authority. Like you'd get a badge or at least a laminated certificate that said, firstborn, eligible for respect. Spoiler alert, you don't. What you get is responsibility, hand-me-down expectations, and a little sister who weaponizes cuteness like a trained assassin. Brielle has always been the favorite. I'm not even saying that with bitterness anymore. It's just logistically true. She came out blonde and blue-eyed and colicky in a way that made my parents laugh instead of scream. I came out with opinions. Apparently that was less charming. From the time she could form a sentence, Brielle had this talent for delivering insults so wrapped in sugar you'd thank her for them. She once told our neighbor Mrs. Donnelly that her perfume smelled like dead flowers in a warm closet, then smiled sweetly and said, but in a romantic way. Mrs. Donnelly gave her a $5 bill. I once told the same neighbor her lawn flamingos were terrifying, and I got grounded for being cruel to creative expression. That kind of summed up our household dynamic. When we were kids, I'd do all the chores, then she'd help by rearranging the throw pillows and get praised for her artistic eye. I'd finish my homework, hers, and the group science project, and she'd show up with a glittery title card and get an A+ for leadership. But it wasn't just school stuff. It was everything. I remember one year our mom hosted Thanksgiving, and I spent the entire day peeling, stirring, baking, and basting while Brielle floated around in a sweater that said, too cute to cook, and posted Instagram stories with captions like, family vibes. Then she sat at the table, took a single bite of mashed potatoes and said, ugh, did someone use skim milk? She did not get smacked. In fact, our dad chuckled and said, that's my girl. Always honest. Meanwhile, I was still in the kitchen scrubbing yam residue off a casserole dish like a forgotten Cinderella knockoff. It wasn't that they hated me. They just saw me as infrastructure. The support beam. Reliable. Unremarkable. Useful. Brielle, on the other hand, was performance art. A living, breathing spectacle of chaos wrapped in sparkles and manipulation. She didn't walk into rooms, she debuted. She didn't lose arguments. She redirected them into soliloquies about how everyone was misinterpreting her energy. The first time I caught her talking behind someone's back, we were 13 and 10. She was whispering to a classmate that our cousin Allie wore bras with training wheels, and that she smelled like tomato soup. I told Mom because I was still under the impression that tattling on cruelty would result in a moral correction. Instead, my mom sighed and said, don't be such a narc. You're older. Let her figure things out. When Brielle posted a TikTok roasting her own best friend's laugh, using a sound clip she recorded without her knowing, I told her it was mean. She said, you just don't get how Gen Z uses irony. When she ruined my suede boots in college by taking them to a party without asking, and spilling jungle juice on them, she shrugged and said, they were too beige anyway. I did you a favor. No one made her replace them. When I told our dad she owed me the money, he said, she doesn't owe you. It's not a debt. It's just shoes. But it wasn't about the shoes. It never was. It was the way she could do anything. Lie, cheat, humiliate people and still get a pat on the head. I could cough in the wrong tone and suddenly I was starting drama. There was a Christmas where I got socks and a self-help book called Tidy Mind, Tidy Life. Brielle got a personalized luggage set and a surprise trip to Costa Rica. When I blinked too long, my mom said, "Don't make that face. You said you wanted practical gifts." I did. But you know what I didn't say? That I wanted a lecture wrapped in tissue paper. They never saw it. Or maybe they saw it and just didn't care. Either way, it wasn't until I moved out and started paying for my own therapy that I realized I wasn't crazy. I was just being gaslit by people who smiled while doing it. And then came the phase. That's what I call the 3-year period where Brielle couldn't hold a job because she was exploring her purpose. She tried yoga instructing. She tried pottery. She tried intuitive styling, which is where she charged people $75 to say things like, "Have you tried neutrals?" And "Let's unpack your relationship with cardigans." I, meanwhile, was working a full-time job in operations and paying her phone bill. Because it's just temporary. Because you're stable and she's in transition. Because family supports family. Eventually, the asks stopped sounding like requests and started sounding like policies. You'll cover her deposit, right? Can she stay with you for a few weeks? Can you co-sign the loan? She just needs time to find her rhythm. Brielle didn't want to find rhythm. She wanted to dance to a beat that someone else paid for. And I kept paying. Because some part of me still hoped. Hoped that if I did enough, gave enough, supported enough, they'd finally see me. They'd finally treat me like more than a safety net in human form. That's why I agreed to help with the wedding. That's why I didn't flinch when she asked me to front the venue costs, until her cashback bonus hit. That's why I put my name on every invoice and stayed up until 2 a.m. tweaking the slideshow transitions because she wanted the kiss photo to line up perfectly with a chorus drop. It was stupid. I know that now. But back then it still felt possible. Like maybe if I just got this right, if I could plan the perfect wedding for her, make it magical, Pinterest-worthy, viral even, she'd turn to me and say, "I couldn't have done this without you." Instead, she turned to me and said, "You're not a bridesmaid. You're like a sponsor." And just like that, the last illusion snapped. It wasn't rage I felt. It wasn't even grief. It was exhaustion. The kind that sinks into your bones and settles there like cold. Because it wasn't just about the wedding. It was about every birthday I'd spent alone while she hosted intimate dinners with friends. Every vacation she posted about that I didn't know she took. Every time she used my name as a credit reference without asking. Every time she mocked me to people I introduced her to, and I still defended her. It was about how she could walk through life with glitter and entitlement, and I was always stuck cleaning up the confetti. So no. I didn't scream when she uninvited me. I didn't throw a fit or guilt trip her or write a Facebook status subtweeting her entire personality. I just opened my laptop, looked at the wedding slideshow, and made a few edits. Not loud ones. Not messy ones. Just factual ones. Because if they were going to reframe my role, I figured I might as well choose the lighting. The first slide was harmless. Sweet even. A slow fade from white into a photo of Brielle and Miles on a hike, back when their relationship was still in its filtered, Instagram caption glow era. The music, her favorite acoustic cover of Electric Love, started playing just as planned. People cooed. Grandma Ellie clapped. Someone near the back said, "Ah," like they'd just witnessed a puppy yawn. Slide 2. Baby Brielle in a pink tutu chewing on a stuffed duck. Slide 3. Prom night. For graduation. 5. Brielle posing next to Miles in matching denim jackets, with the caption, "My forever adventure." All exactly what she expected. Slide 6. A group selfie of Brielle with her bridesmaids at the bachelorette party in Palm Springs. Slide 7. The same photo zoomed in, and with a text bubble. That's when the stopped. The bubble was a screenshot of a message Brielle had sent in a private group chat. One she apparently forgot was synced to her cloud drive. Mallory looks like she stole her dress from a clearance bin at Hobby Lobby. Mallory, maid of honor, stage left, visibly recoiled. I watched from my couch. I hadn't even gotten to the popcorn yet. Slide 8. Another photo from the same weekend. Another quote. "Lana needs to stop trying so hard to be funny. It's a wedding, not open mic night." Someone near Lana choked on a sip of champagne. There was a pause. Laughter? Confusion? No one was quite sure how to react. Then came slide 9. This time it wasn't a photo. It was a screen recording. A slow scroll through texts Brielle had sent to her best friend, Kaylin. Honestly, I'm just keeping the lineup cute for the photos. These girls are not it. Can't wait to cut ties after the honeymoon. So much dead weight. Dead weight. I heard someone gasp on the stream. Like actual gasp. Audible, sharp. Cinematic. The room on screen went quiet. The slideshow kept going. Slide 10, a video. Brielle on the phone, lying in bed, clearly unaware she was being recorded. Miles is sweet, yeah, but like, I could have done better. I settled. Whatever. I just want a ring and some Instagram content before I hit 30. There was no music under that one. Just silence and the sound of 100 people blinking in unison. Miles, sweet, awkward golden retriever Miles, was sitting at the head table, blinking like he'd just been slapped by a polite ghost. Brielle stood. I could see her lips move, yelling something at the AV team. The slideshow didn't stop. Slide 11. A carousel of screenshots from Instagram DMs. Can't believe we're actually inviting Aunt Linda. She smells like expired butter. I'm only inviting my cousin Claire because she's hot and I want the guest list to look aspirational. If my sister thinks she's getting a toast, she's delusional. She'll probably cry and make it about her boring little job. That last one got an audible, "Hey," from someone off camera. Brielle marched toward the screen. And then, the video started. Full volume. Crystal clear audio. It was a mashup. Clips of her from voicemails, TikToks, candid recordings. Her calling the wedding planner a discount Pinterest witch. Her mocking the officiant's lisp. Her referring to the florist as trauma in a peasant blouse. Then came the audio from a voice memo she'd sent to her friend Ivy. It's not like I'm paying for this thing. My sister is footing the bill. He's got like zero boundaries. Honestly, if I fake cry, she'll probably buy the honeymoon too. That was the moment. The moment when every eye turned toward her. Brielle froze mid-step, blinking under the fairy lights like a deer on opening night. You could see the calculation happening behind her lashes. Deny. Downplay. Distract. She chose door number 4. Deflect. This is a prank, she announced. It's obviously fake. Someone edited this. From the couch I sipped my wine. Sure, Brielle. Deepfakes. The real pandemic. Someone, Miles's aunt I think, stood up and said, "Actually, I've seen that text. She sent it to me by accident once." Brielle turned crimson. You're all being manipulated. She's jealous. I wasn't named, but the finger was pointed. Miles stood up. Is that true? He asked. His voice was soft but shaking. You said all that? Brielle's eyes darted like she was looking for an exit hatch that didn't exist. You're really going to take a video's word over me? Miles looked down at his plate. The DJ, unsure what to do, quietly turned off the music. You said you settled, he muttered. Before 30. It was a joke, she hissed. You also said I'm a placeholder with decent credit. Yikes. The guests began murmuring. Then came the rustling of fabric, the polite clinks of people gathering their things. Someone at the back said, I'm not staying for cake. Another, did she just call me dead weight? Lana stormed past the camera with her heels in her hand. Mallory walked out crying. Claire, the hot cousin, looked half amused, half disgusted. Then came the cherry on top. A final slide, a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet. Every invoice. Every payment. Labeled. Highlighted. Venue. Paid by Evelyn, $6,250. Florals. Paid by Evelyn, $1,740. DJ. Paid by Evelyn, $1,200. Slideshow services. Free. You're welcome. I'd even included the breakdown of what she still owed me for the makeup artist deposit, her emergency dental cleaning, and the custom neon sign that said, The Morgans He 2024, which I now assumed she'd want returned. By the time the screen faded to black, only the catering team and my parents were still in their seats. My mom was frozen. My dad was furiously texting someone. And Brielle? Brielle was standing in the center of the dance floor, holding one heel in her hand, mascara streaking down her cheeks, screaming at a wedding planner who'd already started packing up the projector. I watched the whole thing from my couch. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just ate my popcorn. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs a moment. And maybe a little good lighting. You'd think the chaos would have ended with the wedding. It didn't. What I did wasn't some one-night explosion. It was a demolition, controlled, precise, and designed to collapse a structure that never should have been standing in the first place. By the time Brielle's wedding reception hit the 2-hour mark, the dance floor was empty, the cake had been packed up untouched, and the only thing left playing on the projector was the venue's default slideshow loop, a rotating ad for their summer elopement packages. I logged off the live stream the same way I'd logged off the family group chat 3 weeks earlier. Quietly, permanently, with one last message left on read. I figured that would be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. The next morning my phone blew up. Missed calls. Voicemails. A barrage of "how could you" texts from numbers I hadn't saved in years. One bridesmaid sent me a voice memo sobbing, which turned into screaming, then back to sobbing again. A groomsman just texted me, "Honestly? Iconic." But the real fun began with my mother. She didn't call right away. No, Karen waited until the dust settled. She needed time to rehearse. When she finally did reach out, it wasn't to ask how I was or why I did it or what drove me to that point. It was to say, "Your little stunt ruined the wedding. Your sister might be getting divorced. Are you proud of yourself?" I didn't answer. I was too busy making coffee and updating my banking passwords. But let's talk about the divorce part, because yes, that happened. Apparently, Miles packed a bag the morning after the wedding and left a note that said, "I don't want a life where I'm the punchline." He moved back in with his brother and deleted all his wedding photos from Instagram. Brielle posted a cryptic black and white selfie with the caption, "Sometimes love means letting go." No one liked it. Not even my mom. A week later, Brielle tried to text me. "You destroyed the best day of my life. You'll never know what that feels like." Which is hilarious, really. Because technically I built the best day of her life. She just didn't like it once the lights came on and the illusion wore off. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the shared family spreadsheet, yes, we had one, she never left it, and quietly removed my name from every recurring charge. Car payment? Gone. Phone bill? Cancelled. Streaming services? Password changed. Utilities? Best of luck, darling. For the first time in years, I wasn't bankrolling someone else's personality. Cue another call from Mom. "She's heartbroken, Evelyn. This isn't the time to pull support." "What kind of sister does that?" "The unpaid kind," I said. Then hung up. Things escalated quickly after that. Apparently, Brielle had built her entire lifestyle, Monipitas, meal kits, makeup hauls, on the assumption that I'd always be the invisible hand swiping the card. Once that stopped, reality hit her like a brick through a glass coffee table she couldn't afford anymore. She missed rent twice. Her landlord called me. I politely suggested he contact the tenant listed on the lease. She tried crowdfunding her post-wedding reset fund. Raised $36. Half of it was from someone named Justice 4 Miles. Then came the tantrum. He posted a reel, unhinged, overfiltered, ranting about betrayal and narcissistic siblings. She even added a piano track underneath, like she was auditioning for her own trauma docuseries. But my favorite part? She ended it by saying, "Some people are just born with black holes where their hearts should be," and then asked for donations. A week later, she moved back in with our parents. And I mean fully moved in. Bedroom, bathroom, ring light and all. They had to unplug the treadmill to make space for her nightstand. That's when my parents really panicked. Because here's the thing, I wasn't just Brielle's sponsor. I was theirs too. Quietly, stupidly, and for years. When my dad lost his job in 2020, I covered the mortgage. When Mom's car died, I co-signed the loan. When they forgot about property tax season, I paid the bill. Not out of obligation. Out of hope. Hope that maybe one day, they'd see me as more than the family intern with a Venmo account. But after the wedding, I was done hoping. When I told them I was cutting them off financially, my mom gasped like I'd announced I'd joined a cult. "You can't just stop helping your family," she said. "Actually," I said, "I can." I just did. They threatened legal action. They threatened to tell the extended family I'd manipulated the slideshow. They even said I owed them emotional damages. Which was funny, considering all the emotional damage I'd been quietly accumulating like an unpaid intern in a hostile HR department. Eventually, they started calling relatives to try to spin the story. Evelyn went rogue. She ruined Brielle's wedding out of jealousy. She's mentally unstable, she always had a hard time sharing attention. But here's the thing about modern relatives. They have the internet. And I had the footage. Unedited. Time-stamped. With receipts. Literally. By the time I sent out the Dropbox link titled Full Wedding Files, for transparency, the story was over. Even Grandma Ellie called me and said, well, that was dramatic. But fair. Brielle didn't speak to me again. She did, however, send me a request on Zelle for partial damages. I declined it and added a note that said, this user is no longer available. Fast forward 6 months. My parents filed for bankruptcy. Apparently, supporting an unemployed adult influencer with a vendetta against soap operas, don't ask, is not cheap. Brielle started a podcast. She called it The Reframe. You can't make this up. She has 13 subscribers and 3 one-star reviews, all from Bridesmaids. I meanwhile moved to a new apartment. Top floor. No roommates. No surprises. I started freelancing full-time. Built my own consulting business. One of my clients found me through a tweet that said, whoever made that wedding slideshow is my personal hero. I printed that and hung it over my desk. And my favorite part? Peace. Not forgiveness. Not reunion. Not closure. Just peace. The kind that sits in your chest like a warm mug of coffee. The kind that doesn't need to be announced or justified. The kind that doesn't come with screaming or spreadsheets. Just silence. And choice. And the knowledge that when people show you what you mean to them, you can believe them. And then you can leave. Anyway, that's the story. Did I go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where the moral line is these days. And if I crossed it in heels or just danced near it with a slideshow remote in hand. Oh, and if you've ever been the family sponsor yourself, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I promise, no slideshow required.